The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA.
I think you're on mute.
Workday's starting to sound the same.
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Hi, it's Dave here. This is my wife, Kathy.
Hello.
This is the Cinemile. It's the podcast where we walk home from the movies. And you might have to squint closer at this title because we are not indeed going to walk to 28 weeks. No, wait, which one? Years. 28 years later is in the cinemas. We are going to see it, but not today. We're going to go next weekend. I can't go this weekend. I'm away. So what we decided to do instead is we're going to catch up on 28 Days Later from 2002. I haven't seen it in around 20 years, I'd say. Mm-hmm. Kathy, have you ever seen it at all? We can't figure it out.
I've definitely seen it, but 100% don't remember it. You know what I mean? Like, it was too long ago, didn't stick with me, and it's one of those films where I obviously know some iconic imagery of it, but I don't remember it, so I'll essentially be watching it from scratch.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I have clear memories of specific moments in that film that have stuck with me, and I remember how it made me feel. I remember being really impressed with and blown away by it as a fan of the zombie genre. It felt incredibly fresh and innovative in 2002 and basically spawned a resurgence of an entire genre. So it really
had a
was
huge cultural
groundbreaking.
impact.
Yeah.
And it was definitely in the zeitgeist. So I think I'm more aware of it from the zeitgeist piece than from actually remembering it, if indeed I ever watched it in full, which is questionable.
Which we don't know, because memory is slippery.
Exactly. And we're not going to the cinema this weekend, so we're going to watch this at home, and we shall come back tomorrow to discuss what we've watched.
Or mere moments for you.
Yeah.
See you then.
Bye.
So who are you?
I wake up today in hospital. I wake up and I'm hallucinating.
I've got some bad news.
They're infected.
Infected!
Father.
Infected with nuts!
Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
It's the blood. There's something in the blood.
Lesson 1. You never go anywhere alone unless you've got no choice.
Hello?
Lesson 2. You only travel during daylight unless you've got no choice.
This really is a bad idea. You know why? It's obviously a bad idea.
We have to leave now. More will be coming. They always do.
Hi, we're back. It is one day later and we have seen 28 days later.
Nice, very nice.
Thank you. If it is your first time here on the Cinemile, we never spoil the movies, even the ones that are 23 years old, until of course we get to spoiler street. So general thoughts on this movie, potentially your first time watch, potentially your second time watch. Kathy, how you feeling?
So I think the first thing that struck me on watching this is how dated it looks. It looks like a music video that was shot on a very, very low budget, I would say, in terms of the visuals. Love to see a young Cillian Murphy, who looks like a literal child in this film.
This was his breakout role.
It's amazing to see. He's kind of got a Dublin accent on, doesn't have his Cork accent, sadly. There's so many iconic moments in this, you know, him walking across the bridge and him wearing the hospital scrubs. But other than that, I realised I truly did not know anything that was going to happen in this film, bar maybe the opening 10 minutes. So maybe that's all I've seen before.
I don't think you have seen it, though.
I don't think I have either.
I think you've, as you said, you soaked up the zeitgeist of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It feels really fresh and young, and it feels like it was made by a young person, and it definitely has some of that like Trainspotting energy. A huge amount of it is dated in terms of, I'd say, the performances, the editing. Like a lot of it was kind of giving like Mission Impossible 2 vibes. It's more dated truly than we were watching it saying, like we've recently rewatched The Wizard of Oz last year with the kids, which is like a 100-year-old movie essentially.
It looks better than
and
this
The Wizard
movie.
of Oz looks 20 times better than this. So that's just a really interesting kind of comparison. And overall, it kind of has a like Red Hot Chili Peppers in the aughts vibe to it.
It is so naughty. How the naughties have dated.
So dated. And I know Dave will chat to you the technical reasons as to how that's happened, but overall it kind of went where I didn't expect. I totally agree. It's a fresh take on zombies. Love to see Brendan Gleeson, who wasn't allowed to have his Irish accent because I think they were like, we can't have two lead
You
actors.
can't have two Irish people talking to each other.
So in some ways it's fresh and interesting, and I love to see it. To be honest, I feel like I've just watched a time capsule and I've gone back in time.
Yes.
Because technically it does not hold up in any way, but I love to see it, and I have to say I really enjoyed where it ended as well. But it's a very corny film, which I did not know it was going to be. Dave, overall non-spoiler thoughts.
So it's been a long time since I've seen this, and I think you summed it up really nicely there. It is like a time capsule. It is like stepping back into a period that feels to us very recent, but the more old we get, the more I'm starting to realize that is the distant past.
Like
our teenage years and our 20s.
I urge any of our listeners to go and watch it. We rented it. Like, you can rent it for a couple of euro. Go and watch it and you will be shocked. You will not realise how much this movie is dated until you watch it.
And I will get to... I did read a fantastic oral history of 28 Days Later by Inverse, which I'll link to in the show notes, which is only from 2 years ago, where they interviewed Danny Boyle, Alex Garland and many members of the production about it. And it's a great read, and there's some fascinating stuff in it. And I'll get to sort of some details from that in a minute, some highlights. But my thoughts are, opening up this time capsule, is I was reminded of when I was in college and I first saw the movie Citizen Kane, which is widely regarded as groundbreaking. Orson Welles invented filmmaking techniques and methods that became widely adopted, and it's a landmark film that's considered to have changed movie making. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching Citizen Kane, and I had that kind of moment from Arrested Development, like, her? Like this movie? Because it is just looks like every other movie. The things he was the first person to do became so widely adopted that it is the movie making language that I am completely accustomed to, having watched hundreds of movies at that point.
Which it makes it difficult for you to appreciate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So without the so that's how I felt watching 28 Days Later, is that without being there, because I remember, as I said earlier, I remember the feeling of watching that for the first time in the cinema and being like, I have never seen anything like this. Mm-hmm. This is cool. They've taken the concept of taking shuffling, brain-dead zombies, which Alex Garland said he was inspired by two things. George A. Romero's incredible zombie films, which invented the whole zombie genre in the 60s, which he loved. And then they kind of disappeared for a long time. He said he forgot about them, and then he started playing the video games Resident Evil. And he was like, oh yeah, I like zombies, and they're interesting. But he was like, but they're so slow, and the tension in this game is coming from not having enough bullets to get them. So then he said, what if they were fast, like these dogs? That's how he says he literally got the idea from Resident Evil.
So he did this before like World War Z or any of that stuff?
Correct, yeah, all of that. He literally...
And The Walking Dead.
So you could say Resident Evil kind of started this in his head, but he put these things together, said, what if they're not zombies? What if they're not... And I think Danny Boyle isn't a genre guy. He didn't like the zombie thing, and he wanted it to be an infection, right? And so
which is often the cause in zombie things now.
Exactly. But beforehand, it was always supernatural. People are rising from the grave and eating brains. So they took played with an existing genre, changed it, made zombies scary. They were the first people to make them run, and it And we have seen that now so many times. Like 2 years later, Zack Snyder remade Dawn of the Dead, inspired by this movie. We're now what, 20 seasons of The Walking Dead in, and 5 spin-offs, and The Last of Us video game, and
we turn on Now
TV
TV
show.
and we see
There's a new Walking Dead. The Walking Dead. What about that guy who was in season 7? What's he doing? He's in a different city now.
Zombies are hot, and look, we have just reviewed all of The Last of Us season 1 and 2 over on Patreon for anyone who's interested.
Video games.
Thoughts on that one?
Video games did it. Left 4 Dead was great. Like, it was just, we had 10 years, as you said, World War Z 2006. Like, 28 Days Later is responsible for all that. It was also, and it is cool, but now watching it back, you're like, the zombies aren't. It's just not interesting. I've seen what's worse is that we've seen a lot of this done better since, some of it, because other people have innovated where they started. Right?
Yeah, but I don't mind. I could care less about zombies, to be honest, albeit I enjoy a lot of zombie shows or films if they're done well. But the biggest reason this is dated so poorly is the fact that
the third act
was an early adapter and he shot on digital before anyone should have been shooting on digital.
Let's talk.
It looks like I shot it on an old flip phone.
So let's talk about that. So the reason that they decided to shoot on digital, and as you say, nobody was shooting on digital. Now I think George Lucas did for The Phantom Menace, but that was like
famously went well.
George Lucas, for all his faults, is a pioneer,
and he had a lot of money for
of movie making like they did. So the reason they needed to shoot, they only had 45-minute windows, right, to do the empty streets of London. They were given, like, they didn't have enough money to clear London streets for long hours at a time. They had 45-minute windows right as the sun comes up, where the traffic was stopped and they were allowed to so this is like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Unlike your Tom Cruises of the world, you know, who probably got it for a few days to shoot himself running.
So bringing in a traditional camera that we've got to load up the film, and they're very big and bulky, just wasn't practical. So they needed...
I mean, it could have been done though.
Well, they decided not to, right?
Yeah.
They decided this is too difficult in a 45-minute window to get the cameras, move them around. So they went for sort of handheld consumer cameras. So it was the Canon. They tried a lot. The cinematographer speaks about it in this article, Anthony Dodd Mantle. They tried a lot of cameras. They landed on the Canon XL DV1. Or sorry, Canon XL H1, right?
I think, by the way, though, the early outdoor scenes, they look fine. It's more as the film goes on and we're in darker spaces and enclosed spaces that the camera work and the cameras really let it down.
It does. This film looks terrible. It wasn't even shot. It was like 720 by 576, like the resolution. It wasn't even 1080p.
What is that? I don't know what that is though.
So that's like, we're now in the world of 4K, 4,000 pixels on the screen plus, right? So 1080p is 1,000 pixels,
and
which
this was below
do you
that.
remember 15 years ago when TVs were like, this is full HD?
Mm-hmm.
10 or 15 years ago, this is below that.
Right, okay.
Like the phone I'm looking at now has a camera that's about 10 times better than what they made this movie with.
Yeah.
Now
it almost looked, the camera, the cameras were so bad that I was saying to Dave, I feel like it should be in 4:3 because it's weird to see such poor footage in like cinematic format.
Yeah. It looks like a bad TV movie in places. But this is the thing. So he says in this interview that, quote, at that time this was an inferior quality imaging camera. So even then it was not a good quality camera, which to me is wild.
I love it though. I feel like there's something really scrappy about it. Like, we're slagging off the camera, but it's actually very endearing on a rewatch. Yeah.
There's a guerrilla filmmaking style to all this, and this is why they chose this camera. If you listen here, he says, quote, but that camera had this shutter facility that I messed around with in America, the frantic shutter, and Danny was fascinated by this kind of brittle, savage, hectic ability that the digital shutter had to capture movement well and not well, and you could create this demonic atmosphere. So
I mean, to be fair, there's a fairly demonic atmosphere to this.
so I think, like you said, it's this kind of raw, hectic feeling that they were attracted to, that these cameras create. Yes, it has dated very badly. Also, that technique, that sort of a lot of, as you said, I think the editing style, the cinematography style, where everything is slanted in the edgy angle.
Oh, they've the camera constantly turned to just like 20
It's like-
degrees,
it's
just off.
It's so naughty.
It's so distracting. And then they also do the naughty thing of the naughties thing. Sorry, not the naughty thing of like having very loud background music, which is where it just kept veering into full on.
Although
like,
the score is
music-
excellent, the
music
score
video.
holds up.
Yeah, but like sometimes it was just like an emo music video, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of it's an electronic sort of dance score, but that last one in the house has been used in so many trailers over the past 20 years because it is just the way it builds, still lands. I think it's really good.
I love that it's funny, I really wasn't bothered about 28 years later. And we were trying to go and see it this week because Day's away for the weekend, but it doesn't come out till Thursday, and then the times didn't suit us. So we're actually recording this early for once. We usually record like right the day before we publish, which means our patrons will get early access to this episode and they'll have it before the regular feed. But I wasn't bothered about 28 years later, but now that we've watched this, I'm kind of, and I know I haven't seen 28 Weeks Later and you have, but I'm dying to see the two of them come back together and see what they do now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think
because
we should go to spoilers as well before we start speculating.
Okay, sure. So, so we're going to take you might hear a quick ad here, and then we're going to come back for Spoiler Street.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar, zero patience for slow walkers, those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night, have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
Okay, so we're back, and now full spoilers for 28 Days Later. So, Kathy, you were talking about you wanted to sort of speculate about this new movie.
I want to speculate because one of the things as we kind of moved into the third act of this film, and I get the message, humans are turning on humans and it's all humans' fault, you know.
Sorry, another thing that has been done to death to the point where I'm watching this and we're like, how shocking, the humans are the bad guys.
I know.
we know.
Can they not just fight the zombies? But anyway, when they get into this house and like it quickly escalates, and then I'm just going to give a trigger warning here for sexual violence. It quickly escalates. And we kept having to remind ourselves, this is 28 days later.
It's a little
have
absurd.
Gone feral, right? And the captain is like,
people go on holidays for longer than this.
I promise them women. And by the way, I am not at all saying that I don't believe
that some people are capable of this.
That people are. It's not just people do this, right? But I just don't believe that in a group of people that will within 28 days it will have escalated into full-on kidnapping and sexual assault. It just felt really out of nowhere. Like, I understand that he was like, I promised them women and we want women to come, and like I understand that, but it's like, and immediately you're attacking them though. Like, wouldn't you just kind of hope to court them? Like, it all felt like out of nowhere. It kind of turned into a horror film at this point. But like I love the feeling of Cillian Murphy and the two women, like I loved all the escape stuff, and I don't think we need to get into it that much, but like what I was surprised at, again, how naff all those scenes were. Like, some of it felt nearly like Interview with the Vampire kind of vibes. Like, it was all very strange, but I liked it.
In what sense, Interview with the Vampire?
Just blood everywhere and him kissing the love interest.
Why do they kiss?
Yeah, like, it just...
in that moment, it's the worst possible time. They don't even know where Hannah, the teenager, is.
And she's great. It's Naomi Harris, right?
Naomi Harris is very good in this. Cillian Murphy's very good in this.
And then there's Brendan Gleeson's in it. We've got Christopher Eccleston, and then we've got a teenage girl who I think does a really good job. But the film, can I just say what the film did to her?
Yeah.
And it's brutal. So she, if you watch her face, right, she's acting really well in all these scenes. But I don't know why, and I'd love to find out if it's in your oral history.
I looked into this. I cannot find the answer.
Every single thing this girl says in the film has been ADR'd, which means additional dialogue recording. So often actors have to do additional dialogue recording if it's like they've filmed outdoors, the sound's not right, they need to change a line or something. But when everyone else is speaking right there on set, then she comes in ADR, which is, it never works. Even if you've the best budget in the world, you can never quite get it to work, and you can always tell when it's done And this poor girl, like, her performance was ruined by this just constant ADR, and whether it's her own voice or someone else's voice, it doesn't matter because it never matches up.
Because the delivery of the lines isn't quite right.
And the audio sounds different, and it sounds stilted, and
it is distracting to the point where the movie, like, it does distract from the movie.
Because
However,
the camera's already at a 30-degree angle, zooming in and out, and then the audio doesn't match, so you're like, what am I watching?
But one thing that struck me, and I was trying to look into this actress, and she's barely done any. She did one other thing in the past 23 years, but they interview her in this Inverse article, and I won't read the full quote here, but basically people are horrible because people. She felt like she was embarrassed. She let the film down. She would refrain from telling people she was in it.
It's terrible.
And because people were some people found her personal email address.
Because this is pre-Twitter trolls.
So she's 16 years old, and people find her email address and send her things like you were a cancer on the film industry, sending her hate mail. What is wrong with people?
All I can say is she's lucky that social media wasn't around then. But the film did her dirty, and this always happens. And I've just been talking about it this week on my And Just Like That episode review, where there's a kid actor in here who really stands out poorly, but it's not the kid's fault. It's always the director's fault.
Yes.
It is never the kid actor's
Agreed.
fault, because you can get a performance, and I'm including teenagers in that. If you've cast them for a reason, they're obviously good enough. Like, she's toe to toe with Naomi Harris and Cillian Murphy. Like, she did not get that role by accident, and yet the film's done her dirty.
Yeah.
So
and there are some directors are very good at that, and others aren't. Like Spielberg, and I always think J.J. Abrams also. They kind of always get good performances out of a whole host of kids.
Yeah.
So
anyway, so enough about her. But like the ending, though, I really liked the ending. I'm so sick of bleak endings and humans against humans and everyone dying and everything being so grim. So I have to say I really like the ending. And I think we can do a spoiler warning here for 28 Weeks Later. Okay, spoiler for 28 Weeks Later, which I haven't seen. Dave has.
How are you going to spoil it if you haven't seen it?
Turn off if you don't want to know the answer.
Oh, because you looked up what happened?
No, I'm about to ask you a question. That's a spoiler, okay? So they've had enough of a warning now. In 28 Weeks Later...
Oh, I don't remember 28 Weeks Later.
But is Cillian Murphy in it?
Oh, no. So it's none of these people. It's not Danny Boyle. It's not Alex Garland. Brand new everything. I think they were a bit put out by it, actually, so they weren't really consulted. The studio went ahead.
Oh, so Alex Garland and Danny Boyle didn't work on it?
They have producer credits, but as far as I know, I don't think it was very amicable.
Ooh.
None of the same characters. It's Robert Carlyle and Jeremy Renner. And from memory, there's some good stuff in that movie. I think the action's really good. Juan Fresnel, what's the guy's name? The director, who is really good. But it hasn't stuck in my memory.
So this is going to be like one of those situations where they're like, that never happened.
Oh yeah, I don't think I'm not going to bother rewatching it. I might just Wikipedia what happened.
So do we think Cillian Murphy? This is my theory now, that Cillian Murphy's going to have a cameo in the new one.
Well,
this wizened old kind of zombie soldier.
There was a lot of speculation because there's a prominent bit in the 28 Years trailer, which is the best trailer I've seen this year.
I've not watched it.
You have, with the creepy voiceover of you've seen it several times in the cinema while you're sitting next to me. And
scrap that. I've not paid attention to it.
There's a radio announcer saying these creepy words, and it keeps getting repeated over and over again.
Yeah, that's a brilliant trailer.
And
but we were led to believe at the end of 28 Days Later that they were all
they've
starving.
all starved out. Yeah, so I guess not. Well, I think from memory, and I'm not going to wildly speculate.
This trailer is
amazing. Bad. You've thrown me off. Anyway, 28 Years Later, there's a moment in the trailer where there's a really wizened, thin, skeletal, infected sort of rises up like a scarecrow from this field, and everyone thinks that's Cillian Murphy.
I hope not.
I don't think it is.
I want to just imagine that him and Naomi Harris are just living in that cottage, just sewing flags or whatever it is they're doing.
We could get a cameo. I don't know.
I think there needs to be a cameo. If you're bringing back the original, well, maybe they'll bring back this girl and she can finally redeem herself.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Can I give you, I think we should wrap it up, but can I give you a few fun things I learned from this Inverse article?
Please.
Which I'd encourage everyone to read because it's very good.
But I don't need to read it. You can just tell me what happened in it.
Fine, I'll do that. Actually, I'm going to link to one more thing which I found really interesting in the comments, which is the behind the scenes documentary which was released at the time the movie was released, which I'll link to, which is also on YouTube. And it's fascinating because it spends the first 5 minutes of this 20-minute documentary thing trying to solidify the reality behind this an infection, and they've all these scientists who they speak to about like this kind of thing is possible. There is a reality that the human race is going to face a pandemic very soon. There's all these scientists warning that we are underprepared for a pandemic, that this kind of thing is an existential threat to humanity, and people are almost certainly going to die in the near future. That's in 2002. Okay. So it is another reason that this movie was actually quite ahead of its time. And I remember in 2020 there were people walking around London taking pictures, and this movie got called up again a lot, remember? So I'll link to that as well. So a few things that stood out to me from this article which were fun. So the ending that you described was not originally shot. They actually ran out of money while they were making the film and had to stop filming, and they didn't have an ending. They had to beg the studio to get more money to film an ending.
It's so funny because now you'd be like, it's Danny Boyle and Cillian Murphy, like, you know, they'd be throwing millions and millions at them.
This is only £5 million budget, like it was nothing. Amazing. By the way, it was a smash hit. It made $6 million in the UK, made its budget back, made $45 million in the US and $85 million worldwide. It was a massive hit. So they ran out of money, and they eventually got the money to shoot two endings. The original ending, which was Alex Garland's, what he wrote, which was Jim dying in a hospital bed from his gunshot wounds and the two women going off into the sunset.
See, I knew they'd want an ending like that, which is why as we were getting towards the end, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to watch this. So I loved the ending, but it felt to me like a rewrite because of test screenings.
Exactly
like
right.
You don't want to watch that shit.
Alex Garland said that it not only did it test badly, it tested incredibly badly. Yeah. People came out hating.
We followed him the whole film,
ending.
You know, and like, not to spoil any recent shows that have aired, but when you kill off main characters, people aren't very happy.
Yeah, you can piss people off. So they reshot it with this ending, and this is a crazy fact to me. So they wanted this jet to fly overhead during the actual ending of the film, where the three of them are in a house and they write hello to a jet that's flying over.
I like that they said hello and not help. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, that was quite nice. I think it was so that they could have the word hell in his weird flashback. You see hell written in the countryside. So they looked into sort of creating a digital effect of a jet flying over, because they couldn't afford a real jet. And it came in as £70,000 to generate a computer-generated jet flying in the sky at 2002. Something I could do now in After Effects in probably 15 minutes.
I'm pretty sure you could do it in like TikTok editing.
I know, it's absolutely wild how much has changed in 25 years. So they eventually the producers started doing some phone calls and pulling in some favours, and they got a real jet for less than that money. So it's cheaper to get a real person to fly a real jet over the thing.
There's a pilot nearby with the jet. They're not going to charge you that much money.
I know, right?
That is a good fact.
Another one, there's a great shot outside Downing Street of a bus, a double-decker bus turned on its side.
Yeah. I wondered about that.
Which is awesome. And they asked permission from Westminster Council to, they had permission to shoot there, and they said, can we put this bus on its side outside Downing Street? And they said, no, absolutely not. And so they showed up at this set. They said they have to do it further down or whatever. They showed up at Downing Street at 4 a.m. and there was nobody there. So they said, let's just do it anyway. So they just did it. They brought the bus in, lowered it down, and they did all that in 20 minutes. So shout out to the team. Like, they brought a double-decker bus in, got it on its side, shot, and out again in 20 minutes.
See, this is why I love the ingenuity of this, because nowadays they'd be all green screening and faffing about, and you know, they'd somehow spend weeks doing something like that, where you just bring it in and put it there, you know? So much better.
Okay, one last one. Andrew MacDonald, the producer, speaks about in this Inverse article that he said that the British media slated this film, that they didn't like it, which kind of became revised very quickly afterwards, but the immediate reactions were bad.
Because they're like, no, Danny Boyle's a cultural institution now.
Yeah, I know, right?
He's done the Olympics.
Let's open him up to the Olympics. But it's funny how like, because at the time he said it was a genre movie and everyone was sniffy, except actually Mark Kermode, who gets called out by Danny Boyle in this interview for running up to him after a test screening and say, I saw your movie and I fucking loved it.
Ha, love it.
So Danny Boyle remembers. He remembers who was there.
I mean, the thing is, though, you would remember if everyone's slating it and then Mark Kermode comes up and tells you it's brilliant. You're not going to forget that.
Yeah,
like, you know,
exactly.
he's one of the biggest film critics. And having met him, is a very lovely guy.
But it was a huge hit in America, and the critics in America loved it. And one person, he calls out Andrew McDonald, he said Stephen King loved it, and he bought 800 tickets on the opening night.
I love that.
Or something. Now, I'm looking
course
into
he
this.
did.
I can't find any verification for this except
but it's Stephen
100
King.
articles quoting this article. But Andrew McDonald, the producer, said he bought 800 tickets to this movie.
Completely believe it. Anyway, Dave, thank you for those wonderful facts. And if you enjoy listening to us talk about old movies, and with Dave providing a ton of fun facts about them, we do this every month over on our Patreon. We have just watched and are about to publish Videodrome.
Yeah, first watch for both of us.
What a ride.
It was a great film.
It was a great watch, and Dave is full of fun facts on that one as well. So come over to Patreon if you want to hear more retro movie reviews, and we'll see you back here next week to watch 28 years later.
Years later, yeah. How many years later actually is it in real life? 23 years later.
Yeah, you did the
so
math
close.
earlier. You've already said it on this
So
podcast.
close. Oh.
Yeah, I guess they were just like, look, it got commissioned, we'll run with it, because in 28 years later nobody might want it.
I think they should have shot it, shelved it,
They should have
and brought it
sat
back
on
out in
it, yeah.
2030.
Anyway, if you enjoyed this podcast, we'd greatly appreciate if you rate and review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And on Spotify, we've kind of only recently realised you can leave comments under episodes on Spotify, which is quite fun. So we enjoy all the comments there.
Sorry to all the people that have been leaving comments for 3 years.
we've only just
and we've
realised.
only just recently
But now
found them all.
we could not be more all over the Spotify commenter that we've realised this. And you can upload videos, so I've even put some videos for the And Just Like That series up on Spotify. So, you know, it's all happening over there. Anyway, see you next week. Bye.
Bye, thanks for listening.
And you're gonna be next.